Have you received a speeding fine in your motorhome or campervan where you feel you were driving within the limits that are in force? Well, we've seen recently that this is becoming more common, so stick with us to understand why this could happen and how to challenge it. Don't forget to check out our other videos on everything campervan and motorhome related, from solar to water, heating to gadgets, tyres to trips. If you like this video, please do hit the thumbs up, it really does help me to know what you like, and you can ask any questions or give feedback in the comments. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of our future videos, please hit the subscribe button, and clicking the bell will give you a notification when a new video goes live. Finally, if you do decide to hit the thumbs down, it would be great if you could also leave a comment so I know what you didn't like. When it comes to speed limits, somewhat surprisingly, there are different limits between vans and motorhomes, even where they are built using the same vehicles. We've seen the number of examples where owners have received fines where they shouldn't have, and this has increased possibly due to more automated speed cameras. In this video, we'll cover what you need to do to challenge a fine you've received where it has been assumed you're in a van rather than a campervan or motorhome. And thankfully, it's not necessary that your van is registered as a motor caravan body type by the DVLA. But first, why mightn't you receive a fine when you shouldn't? In the UK, the speed limit for a motorhome and campervan is different to that of a private goods vehicle, even though the actual base vehicle may be identical. Motorhomes and campervans, for the purposes of legislation referred to as motor caravans, which are under 3.05 tonnes when unladen, for the purposes of speed limits, sit in the same category as cars. You can see the different classifications and speed limits on the .gov website. Let's take a medium wheelbase transit van as an example. With a gross weight of 3.5 tonnes, and in all likelihood, even after conversion, an unladen weight of well under 3.05 tonnes. On a single carriageway, if it were to be used as a delivery van, this would have a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. However, if it's converted to a campervan, it would have a speed limit of 60 miles an hour. And on a dual carriageway, it would be 60 as a van, but 70 as a motor caravan. As both can look very similar, if not indistinguishable, when caught on a camera, you as a campervan or motorhome driver could easily receive a penalty ticket for exceeding 60 miles an hour, when in fact you're perfectly legally able to drive at 70 miles an hour. Now, I am not saying that you should drive to this maximum. With a slower pace of life, fuel economy and even safety in mind, you may choose to stick to the lower limit, but the higher limit is there and is what should be enforced. A point to be conscious of before challenging are that you are confident that your vehicle does fully fit into the category of the higher speed limit. For example, if towing a trailer, you will be subject to a lower limit, and any motor caravans which carry goods or burden not directly necessary for the purpose of living in the vehicle would be classed as a goods vehicle and therefore subject to current goods vehicles measurements for speed limits, not those for a motor caravan. At this point, I will stress I am not a legal professional, so all the views I share in this video are my own based on research and interpretation. The info I share is simply to give my point of view and hopefully help you to make informed choices. If you have any doubt, I would always suggest consulting a qualified professional. You can find links to all the relevant sections of the legislation and resources I quote in the video notes. So let's say we were driving a converted Ford Transit 280 medium wheelbase van on the A449 where the national speed limit is in force, and we received a Notice of Intended Prosecution for travelling at 66 miles an hour, where the limit for a private light goods vehicle is 60 miles an hour. But for a motor caravan under 3.05 tonnes unladen weight, it's 70 miles an hour. We weren't towing a trailer and we weren't carrying goods unrelated to living in a van. Once you've received a penalty ticket or notice of intended prosecution, you have the opportunity to challenge this. You can usually do this by post, but in some circumstances you may need to go to court. There are two key things that we need to demonstrate with our challenge. One, that the speed limit for the class of vehicle on the road we were driving on is higher than the speed we were travelling, as shown in the evidence provided by the statutory authority. and 2, that the vehicle we were driving meets the criteria for the class of vehicle you have specified in point 1. So let's start with point 1. The starting point here is the government website for speed limits and the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984. A link to this and the highlighting of the relevant road classification and your vehicle classification should suffice. So in the case of our Ford Transit campervan, we're going to say, as stated in the Road Traffic Regulation Act and confirmed on the .gov website, the speed limit for a motor caravan under 3.05 tonnes unladen weight on a dual carriageway with national speed limit as at the point of the alleged offence is 70 miles per hour. The evidence provided demonstrates the vehicle is travelling at 66 miles per hour, which is under the speed limit in force for the classification of our vehicle. If you want to embellish your evidence, you can include photographs of signage to demonstrate the speed limit posted on the road in question. Now to prove point 2, we need to clearly demonstrate that the vehicle we were driving fits within the classification of a motor caravan and is under the 3.05 tonne unladen weight threshold. The same Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984 as in point 1 states, motor caravan has the same meaning as in Regulation 2.1 of the Motor Vehicles Type Approved Great Britain Regulations 1979, which states, motor caravan means a motor vehicle which is constructed or adapted for the carriage of passengers and their effects, and which contains as permanently installed equipment the facilities which are reasonably necessary for enabling the vehicle to provide mobile living accommodation for its users. To add clarity to this requirement, we can reference the Department for Transport's guidance on internal features for motor caravans. This covers the 4 key things that your motor caravan should have: seats and a table, sleeping accommodation, cooking facilities and storage facilities. Here is where it's important not to get confused between the Department for Transport's definition of a motor caravan as a vehicle type, which is clearly set out in this document, with the DVLA's requirement for the vehicle body type of motor caravan, which is more ambiguous and thankfully irrelevant in this situation. For completeness, you can reassure yourself of this with the statement of, the body type does not affect the insurance category of the vehicle or have any effect on speed limits or other legislative requirements. It is only used for establishing vehicle appearance and identification. So at this point, our evidence to prove our vehicle fits within the motor caravan vehicle type classification should be photos of the vehicle showing the interior requirements present. Some of these photos should include views of the vehicle number plate with a view into the vehicle with the door open to show the interior present. If you do happen to have provided evidence to the DVLA prior to the incident in an attempt to change the body type to motor caravan, whether this was successful or not, a copy of the response letter is a clear and dated evidence of the interior conversion. As you can see in this DVLA letter of a rejection for changing the body type to motor caravan, they acknowledge that the interior of the vehicle has been converted. When it comes to proving the unladen weight, which must be below the 3.05 tonne threshold, those are defined this as the weight of a vehicle inclusive of the body and all parts which are ordinarily used with the vehicle when working on a road. Unladen weight does not include the weight of water or fuel used for the propulsion of the vehicle, or of loose tools and loose equipment. The most thorough way to prove this is to empty your van of all loose possessions, fuel, etc. and take it to the public weighbridge to get a confirmed unladen weight. Whether you think this is needed or not is a useful exercise anyway, and you can check out more on van weights and why they're important on our video on upplating a van, which is linked up here and in the video notes. Personally, I would expect that in most cases providing evidence of the original base vehicle's unladen weight and demonstrating that this leaves more than enough leeway for the installation of your base interior build for the vehicle to still be below 3.05 tonnes would suffice in your challenge. Having demonstrated both points, I feel we would have successfully proved that the speed we were travelling was within the speed limit for the classification of the vehicle and would expect any prosecution or penalty to be dropped. Given that most of the legislation we are quoting from is from 1984, you may question whether this is still relevant. To give some credence to this and add credibility to your challenge, a useful resource is the response to a Freedom of Information request from Helen Gretsch, the Department of Transport's Policy Advisor for Freight, Vehicle Speeds, Driver Hours and Enforcement, section from May 2020, which states, "I can confirm that the speed of your vehicle is not connected to the body type on your V5C registration form. I assume that your vehicle has been converted to meet the definition of a motor caravan, so as such would need to comply with the speed limit for this type of vehicle, i.e. a motor caravan, dependent on its weight, regardless of what information is on the V5C form. If your motor caravan does not exceed 3.05 tonnes unladen weight, then it is not restricted to lower speeds than the national speed limits and can travel at the same speed limit as a car." I've linked to the full response in the notes. I hope all of this is helpful should you face this scenario. If you have any questions or feedback, please do let us know in the video comments. Thanks for watching our video, and as always, if you have any questions or feedback, please pop them in the comments below. If you find the video useful, please like, share and consider subscribing.